Welcome to Maritime Pakistan, your gateway to the fascinating world of oceans and the opportunities they present to every one of us. Our goal is to explore the shared heritage of the seas and oceans to achieve global prosperity. Today's discussion explores the book The Sea in History, The Ancient World, and we're going to be focusing on the third chapter, the maritime aspects of early Andean civilizations. We're about to dive into the mystery of how one of the world's great early civilizations rose from a really unlikely partnership between a barren desert and a bountiful sea.
Okay, let's just jump right in. What you're looking at here is one of the oldest cities in the Americas, a place called Caral. These massive pyramids are so old, they actually rival the ones in Egypt. But take a close look at the landscape around them. This is not the lush Nile River Valley. This is a desert. And that right there is the central mystery. This huge, monumental city wasn't built in a fertile place like Egypt or Mesopotamia. No, it was built in one of the driest places on the entire planet. So how on earth did they feed the thousands of people needed to build something on this scale? This question puzzled archaeologists for decades, and it turns out the answer lies just off the coast in the Pacific Ocean. To solve this paradox, we really need to understand the unique environment that gave birth to this civilization. It's a story of extremes, really, of barren land and a sea that was just teeming with life. So here's the setting for our story. The central Andean region is what's called a hyper-arid desert. It's this narrow strip of land pinned between the cold Pacific Ocean and the towering Andes Mountains. Those mountains create what's known as a rain shadow, which makes this coastal strip one of the driest places you can find. So the crucial point here is this fundamental contrast. On the one hand, you've got this desert where farming is only possible in these little narrow river valleys. But on the other hand, thanks to the cold Humboldt Current, you have one of the richest, most productive fisheries on the entire planet. The whole story of Andean civilization is really the story of people learning how to master this paradox. And you know what? They mastered it early. Long before the first pyramids were ever built, the people of the Andes had already developed this deep and incredibly sophisticated relationship with the sea. Let's just walk through the timeline and see how this all builds up. We see evidence of people living on the coast that stretches back more than 14,000 years. By 11,000 BC, we're already seeing complex fishing camps. Then, around 4000 BC, you get a real game changer, the domestication of cotton. This leads to stronger, better nets. And just a couple of centuries after that, bam, the first monumental temples start rising from the desert sands. Now, what's really fascinating about sites like this one, Cabrera, Hawaii, is what they tell us about these early people. I mean, we're talking about evidence from 13,000 years ago that shows a people who were already masters of maritime resources. They weren't just scraping by, they were absolute specialists.
Just look at this breakdown of their lives. We are talking about a society that had specialized fishers using nets to target very specific species of fish. They had organized base camps. They used local plants for everything from medicine to building materials. And, get this, they were trading with people way up in the high Andes over 150 kilometers away. So they laid all the groundwork, but it left a big question. Could fishing alone really build a civilization?
That very question sparked one of the biggest and, frankly, most fascinating debates in Andean archaeology. Was this a civilization built on fish, or was it built on farms? The answer, it turns out, would challenge a long-held belief about how civilizations even rise in the first place. So back in 1975, an archaeologist named Michael Mosley proposed a really radical idea. He argued that the engine of this civilization wasn't agriculture, like it was pretty much everywhere else in the world. Nope, it was the sea. He called it the Maritime Foundation's hypothesis, and it suggested that all that abundant seafood, combined with industrial crops like cotton for nets, provided the economic surplus they needed to build cities and temples. For years, the evidence seemed to support this idea. I mean, all the known monumental sites were right there near the shore. But the whole theory rested on one big assumption, that the biggest, most complex centers were coastal. What if they weren't? And then, in the 1990s, a discovery 23 kilometers inland changed, well, everything. The uncovering of that massive city of Caral, the one we saw earlier, threw a huge wrench in the maritime-only theory. It was huge, it was complex, and it was pretty far from the beach. So, led by the Peruvian archaeologist Ruth Shady, the excavations at Caral revealed this stunning paradox.
On the one hand, the city had 6 major pyramids and clear evidence of large-scale irrigation farming. And yet, when they analyzed the food remains, nearly all of its animal protein, the fuel for its entire workforce, came from the sea, mostly in the form of anchovies and sardines. This discovery didn't kill the maritime theory. It actually made it even more interesting. It revealed a more complex and, honestly, a more elegant truth. The foundation of Andean civilization wasn't one or the other. It was both. And this chart here just illustrates that partnership brilliantly. The coastal communities provided a steady, massive supply of protein from the sea. The inland communities in the valleys, well, they provided essential carbohydrates from farming, but just as importantly, they grew the critical technology: cotton for the nets and gourds for floats. It was a powerful, symbiotic economic engine. And this engine, this partnership, was turbocharged by a unique window of climatic stability. This wasn't just some random development. The timing for this was absolutely perfect. You see, around 3800 BC, a climate shift actually made the ocean even more productive, increasing the supply of fish like anchovies. At the exact same time, the destructive El Niño weather pattern, which is a periodic warming of the ocean that devastates fisheries and causes massive flooding, it became very, very rare. This combination created a kind of golden age that allowed this new cooperative society to just flourish for centuries. Okay, so let's fast forward thousands of years. This deep connection to the sea remained absolutely crucial, even for the famous highland-based Inca Empire. They may have lived up in the mountains, but they totally understood the power of the ocean. Take this incredible quote. When the Inca Emperor Atahualpa was captured by the Spanish, the Lord of Chincha was the only other person allowed to be carried on a litter, which was a huge honor. When the Spanish asked why, Atahualpa said it was because this coastal lord commanded 100,000 rafts on the sea. Now that's almost certainly an exaggeration, but it really highlights the immense power of these coastal kingdoms. The Chincha kingdom was built on this kind of specialized economy. Documents from that period describe a society with tens of thousands of people, including 10,000 specialized fishermen, 12,000 farmers, and even 6,000 long-distance merchants. This level of specialization gave them enormous wealth and influence. The Inca, being landlocked highlanders, used this maritime power as a brilliant geopolitical tool. So they needed a sacred shell called Spondylus for their key religious rituals. Their main rivals, the coastal Chimu Empire, controlled that trade. So what did the Inca do? They allied with the Chincha and gave them control of this lucrative sea route to basically break their rivals' power. It was a genius move. And this just goes to show you, from the very first settlers huddled on the coast 14,000 years ago, all the way to the vast Inca Empire, the sea was never just a source of food. It was a source of technology, of wealth, of spiritual meaning, and of political power. The Andeans thrived for millennia by creating this incredibly sophisticated balance between the resources of the land and the sea. Their 5,000-year-old story of cooperation and adaptation really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What can it teach us about our own relationship with the ocean today? We hope that you liked today's video. Please share your comments and subscribe to explore other similar opportunities. Post your questions in the comment section for future videos.